Slavery is back.
Welcome to a place where private business profit from a captive labour force, yet pennies are spent on medical services to a population in which the Indigenous, the poor and the mentally ill are overrepresented. Where isolation, humiliation and degradation are facts of life. Welcome to prison.
It depends who's telling the story, I suppose. The prisoners would have one view, the people who work in the prison system would have another, and I think it's up to people to decide where the truth is.
Give government propaganda and the media spin doctors the flick. And check out Doin' Time for news, views and tunes on prison issues from Guantanamo Bay to Christmas Island to prisons and detention centres everywhere. Every Monday at 4 p.m. on your community radio 3CR.
We are still fired up and we're still talking about revolution.
Hello and welcome to the Doin' Time show. This is 3CR Community Radio, 855 AM on the dial, streaming live on www.3cr.org.au. This is Marisa and I'll be taking you through until 5 o'clock this evening. Special cheerio to Peter and Rob who can't be there. Anyway, this show is a very special broadcast. It's dedicated to all deaths in custody and Black Lives Matter. It's dedicated to Aboriginal people who have died in custody in Australia and to deaths in custody all over the world. Specifically today, we will be speaking first up with Meriki owners from the Warriors of Aboriginal Resistance, and she and a couple of other people from the organisation, they actually organised a rally here in Victoria. And it's about an issue that is terribly important to Australia. When the footage emerged of the murder of George Floyd, and he was actually murdered by 4 Minneapolis police officers, he desperately pleaded, "I can't breathe, I can't breathe," and he was crying out for his mother. And basically there are other echoes of other people that have died in custody, which we will be honouring today. So this particular rally has been called in honour of George Floyd and also in honour of deaths in custody. And indeed, there were rallies all over Australia as well. And 3CR Doin' Time show will be bringing you coverage of this particular rally today and coverage of other rallies in the coming weeks. After we speak with Meriki, we'll also be speaking with Aunty Jeanelle, and she will be speaking to us about the massacre of Myall Creek in New South Wales. And we can't ignore this. There have been massacres of Aboriginal people all over Australia, and we do need to expose that genocidal policy and fatality. It's approximately 4:03. And we're going to be speaking with Meriki first up very soon.
Councils around the country will put on just Disability Day events, and quite a few of them will not include people of colour, First Nations people and Black people. So I think it's pretty cool that everyone you'll hear on air today will be a person of colour, and the majority of them will be people with disabilities as well. I think when we were preparing for this show and for this day, we wanted to talk about how we could explain the concept of power from the margins and why it is that we've chosen to focus on Black people, Indigenous people and people of colour. And I think, in one word, it's intersectionality. It's the fact that people experience forms of oppression, different forms of oppression at the same time, and most people don't realise that you can't have racial justice without disability justice and vice versa.
3CR, your station in struggle and solidarity.
To donate, go to 3cr.org.au.
Oh, hello, sorry. Welcome to the Doin' Time show again. And is Meriki, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you, Marisa?
Yeah, good, considering with this pandemic in progress and with all the negative media coverage that's been happening, with not only the deaths in custody, but also in terms of the increased police powers. Can you talk to us about what's been happening with the Victorian rally and why did you call it?
So initially we called the rally in response to George Floyd's death in the US in Minneapolis and what we saw was going on, and then it was kind of like a domino effect. There were demonstrations that happened in Paris, New Zealand, Perth, and we wanted to have a Black Lives Matter demonstration here, but also in solidarity with African American people that are getting killed in the US, but also in particular George Floyd, but also to raise the issue here and link the two issues of deaths in custody here.
Absolutely crucial.
Yeah. So it happens.
So who were you thinking of? I mean, for example, we've got David Dungay that he couldn't breathe either, could he?
No. So they were very similar. Like the David Dungay case is extremely similar to what happened to George Floyd, and that struck a chord with a lot of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here, and also more broadly the African community. We've heard from the African community about the extreme racism they experience here, and I think it's an issue that Black people experience all around the world. But I think that it's a particular kind of anti-Blackness that we experience. What was the question again? I've forgotten.
No, that's okay. It's really just about having an informal discussion, Meriki, and really what I wanted you to just concentrate on was just to talk about the honouring, like the rally really was honouring people like Aunty Tanya Day, Ray Thomas Jr., Joyce Clark, Miss Dew, Mr. Walker. The list goes on, doesn't it?
Yeah, so we wanted to platform the voices of the families who'd lost people in custody, who lost family in custody. So that's who primarily spoke, but we had some respected community members. We had community members that experienced police brutality themselves, long-time activists, Black Uncle Robbie. We had the Wurundjeri people do a really beautiful opening and a smoking ceremony, so that was really special.
Was. Yeah.
And I think my estimation is that we had 250,000.
Wow.
Some are saying less, some are saying more, but that to me, that's probably the most accurate from my perspective. But firstly, I just wanted to acknowledge too that often when we're talking about deaths in custody, that trans women don't often get spoken about, or trans women's experience, and Black trans people. So, there was a huge rally today in the US for Rhea Milton from Ohio and Dominique Remy Fells from Philadelphia, and I think that's really important to talk about how intersectionality works within the Black Lives Matter and the Black Deaths in Custody movement as well.
That's very true, and also, and what you've said is really important. We do need to acknowledge that, and also Veronica Baxter in Australia as well.
That's right. Yes, Veronica Baxter,
a transgender woman that that was just despicable. What happened in prison, where they wouldn't give her a hormone medication, and she died in custody.
She was killed in a men's prison.
Yeah,
sadly.
Men's prison. It's
awesome.
really quite gross.
So, I just wanted to say that I think that, we need to do better in that space. And as a society, and when we're talking about this, there is a particular violence that trans women experience, and women as well, Breonna Taylor in the US, and, Miss Dew here. And so I think it's really important to continue to educate ourselves in these issues and, raise the issue of the experience of trans community and women as well.
It's really important, isn't it? And in regards to the Royal Commission into Aboriginal deaths in custody, it seems to me that in all these deaths that you've talked about, the recommendation, this is not not applicable to America, but it is in a way that, you've got Recommendation 87, which is arrest people only when there is no other way of dealing with the problem. Obviously, that's not happening here in Australia. And obviously with George Floyd, he was murdered in cold blood there in America, isn't it?
Yeah. I think the issue is, I think the Royal Commission to Black Death in Custody, that's great for a sounding board, and there was a lot of research and a lot of work done, and that can be used to criticise the inaction from the government. But I actually think that we should go beyond the reformist perspective, and I think that we need to talk about it from an abolitionist perspective. And I know a lot of really good work went into the Royal Commission to Aboriginal Death in Custody, but the reality is that it's centred around reform. And if a police officer has that discretion to say only when necessary, how do you measure that?
Exactly. Talk to me about abolition. Yeah, talk to me about abolition, Meriki.
I'm learning myself, but it's really comforting and encouraging to see in the US that they're calling to defund the police.
Yep.
And that's really taken off, and Angela Davis has been really well outspoken about that, and a lot of our mob here fighting for sovereignty have really centred the abolition of systems of oppression, and I think that's where we have to focus our energy, is that it's a systemic issue. It's not like an individual decisions of a police officer, and it's not about a few bad apples. It talks about the system and how it presents as racism in itself, and how that police are incapable of not being it's impossible for a police force not to be racist because of the way that they are formed in many different countries. So, our perspective is that you can't reform the police. It's that the best way forward is to defund the police.
Well, you know what? That's actually very true. I hope we can all do that. In fact, they did do it in Seattle. I don't know whether you saw the news coverage there.
Yeah, they passed look, I'm not an expert and I'm not completely across that, but they seem to pass in their city council that they wanted to defund the police.
That's right.
And that they can't reverse that. So that's going to be really interesting to see how that comes out, what comes out of that. And, I hope that doesn't mean replacing them with another softer type of police force, which, isn't in fact still policing people. So I think, it's not just about defunding the police. They've got to divest from the police and invest in community,
Are you still there, Meriki?
Housing.
Oh, sorry, you got cut off there. Yeah. No, that's fantastic.
Divest from the police and invest into the housing and invest into destroying and eradicating poverty and homelessness, So it can't just be defund the police. It's about
No, you're quite right. Yep.
Shifting the whole structure away from punishing people to, there's got to be transformation into care.
Absolutely. But while that's happening, we do need to try and get the police to see that they are in fact breaking the law, and we need to get civilian review boards up as well to make police accountable. But Meriki, the abolition perspective is really crucial, I think, to the movement. It's really important.
I
Meriki,
think, I saw.
Yeah, go on.
I saw something, online that Angela Davis said, and she's probably, internationally a really prominent voice on this. So that I've lost my train of thought now. It was about when you reform the system, you're just reinforcing the system's power and therefore reinforcing racism. So
absolutely, I actually heard her speak in California quite some years ago now, and she was quite electric. She's got quite a lot to say. You should try and read some of her books. They're pretty good.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool. So, Meriki, also just quickly, I just wanted to talk about some of the increased police powers that are happening with the pandemic and how the organisers were getting the blame and getting fined for ridiculous things when really it was quite difficult to social distance in a protest like that. And you've got to really look at the fact that Aboriginal deaths in custody are really important. Can you comment on that?
Yeah. I just think it's really gaslighting and unfair to say that the issue of Black Lives Matter and black deaths in custody isn't as important or is somewhat less of an issue. And, you know, the narrative that I've seen around it has been extreme. And I think that it just really exposes how racist the Australian government really are in how they use the pandemic to silence us and to perpetuate further system racism against our bodies and our people and our right to protest. I mean, it's offensive. You know, I've spoken to countless medical professionals who were quite impressed in how we ran the rally. It was safe.
That's right.
We're not out of the woodworks yet. You know, we're not. It's about reducing risk. It wasn't about eliminating the risk. So people have to keep that in mind. But we did everything that we could to eliminate as much risk as we could. And we followed the advice based on choosing to protest and very carefully. And we've had extreme support from many different medical professionals to say that it was done quite well, but also that racism is a major health issue in Australia, and that if racism was treated like the pandemic, we wouldn't have to be here and do this.
That's right.
If it was considered as important.
Yeah.
So, yes, I'm very disappointed. I was fined $1,652. That's to me, I think that's, and I have to say a special thanks to the Age, because I actually truly believe, because of the Age reporting, that we were encouraging protesters to spit on the police, that the government backflipped on their decision not to fine us. And that's just how racism in the media complements systemic racism that we experience. It's just a perfect formula for, how they interact with each other. And I'm extremely disappointed in how this was all set up. But it's not the first time, and it's not the worst kind of system racism. So, our mob die at the hands of racist policing, and this is the issue. This is what we're talking about.
Correct. And in fact, the Victorian Charter of Human Rights and Responsibilities Act provides that every person has the right of peaceful assembly.
That's it. That's right.
Keep up the good work, Meriki. And I think what I want to say very clearly on air, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Meriki, but protesters do not have to be blamed for a second wave of pandemic, because really it's not about that.
No.
It's very bad media coverage to say that.
It's extraordinary.
It is indeed.
Thanks, Marisa.
Thanks a lot. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
You're listening to 3CR Community Radio 855 AM on digital and online. 3CR Radical Radio.
3CR is your station in solidarity and struggle.
We've been with you since 1976 and we are here to stay.
Throughout June, we're running a station appeal.
We need the financial support of our listeners to stay independent, community-owned and radical.
Jump online and give what you can. Go to 3cr.org.au.
And you're back with the Doing Time show. And we're going to be speaking now with Aunty Jeanelle about not only the Myall Creek massacre and what's happened there, but also we're going to be speaking about native title and the story about her land. And before we actually speak with her and welcome her to the program, I just wanted to give a very brief introduction. So early in the morning of 18th December 1838, 7 men were publicly hanged at the Sydney jail, and they were the first British subjects to be executed for massacring Aboriginal people. And the Myall Creek massacre was neither the first nor last massacre of Aboriginal people in Australia, but the New South Wales Supreme Court trials that followed set a judicial precedent. And attitudes towards such massacres took longer to change. And that's from the National Museum of Australia. Hello, Aunty Jeanelle. Welcome to the program.
Hello, how are you?
It's lovely to have you. Good, thanks. Yeah, so Jeanelle, you're a committee member and friend of Myall Creek, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
That's lovely. Can you tell us what land you're from and also talk about some of the work that you've been doing and what you think about what's happened with Myall Creek?
Okay, I identify with two, Biripi on my father's side and Dungutty on my mother's side. Myall Creek is in Anawang country under the native title.
Yep.
Claim. And Myall Creek is a memorial that...
Try to speak up a little bit, Jeanelle. Aunty Jeanelle, sorry. Go on. Yep.
Oh, sorry, Doc.
There we are. Yep.
Myall Creek is a memorial to the Aboriginal people who died from the massacre, and also it's a reconciliation project because people from all sides, perpetrators and people who helped the Aboriginal people, all came together and developed this memorial to move forward together on and hopefully so we can recognise that this never happens again, although we know that it happened all over Australia.
It really did, didn't it? And those massacres are often never really acknowledged, are they?
I think one of the negative aspects that came out of the Myall Creek when they did come into the justice system was that it just made massacres go more undercover. So people realised that they could be prosecuted and hung for it, so that then it was just kept out of mainstream. So a lot of them weren't talked about or discussed openly.
Would you say that the massacres were linked with the settler expansion of land?
I can't think of any other reason.
Yeah, I think it's true, isn't it? That, you know, this is all about land grab, isn't it? And it's all about genocide and taking over, you know, taking over Aboriginal people.
It's Aboriginal people have been displaced and dispersed since colonisation.
Yep.
And the impact on it has nearly wiped everybody out. But I think Aboriginal people have shown a strength and resilience in still being here today and still being able to stand up and speak for Aboriginal people against these atrocities that we happen, like the Black Lives Matter program that you were just talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I believe that there were going to be some performers and events happening and it couldn't happen because of the pandemic this year.
Yes, every year we have our Memorial Day and the long weekend in June. And this year, because of the restrictions from COVID, we were unable to have it there. There were some people who did go out to the site, but we developed an online memorial so that people could still join us on our special day, but with respect to the COVID restrictions, we had very little choice.
It's very difficult, isn't it? So can people access that online audio?
Yes, they can. myall.org.
Yeah.
I think you'll find it at myallcreek.org. Yes.
It's so good to have you on the program, Aunty Jeanelle. And I'm wondering if you could then just talk a little bit about, I think you were mentioning when we were talking off air last week about your land and some things that happened there with native title.
The point I was alluding to when I was discussing that with you is native title's been hard enough to get in the best of circumstances. But there's a whole group of people who have been displaced that have grown up on country that is not necessarily theirs and seem to be missing out on any of these connections back with native title. So I just really hope that Aboriginal people don't forget the people that have been displaced and dislodged from their culture and their country, and remember that it was no fault of theirs that they're in that position. They had no choice but to end up where they were. So that's one of the things that I find we sometimes forget.
Yep. Tell me what the worst thing about it is.
What, native title?
Yeah.
That they don't give it back to us is probably the worst thing.
Because tell me about, like, with this native title, what does it actually mean? Because a lot of Aboriginal people that I've spoken to don't really believe in it. What does it mean?
It's about traditional owners and their connection to the land and being able to prove a certain set of criteria that satisfies the government's process so that they can apply to be recognised as the traditional owners of that area. Along with that come, custodial rights and various other aspects. But basically it's about traditional owners being able to claim in this government system ownership of their land recognised by the Australian government.
And that's connected with Mabo?
Very much so. Mabo was an exceptional person who did a wonderful job and tested those laws, but once that case had been through, then the government came through and changed certain aspects of native title, so it made it a lot more difficult for others to claim. There have been many successful claims, but there have been many that haven't been successful, and there's many that are still waiting to be addressed.
Actually, I think the anniversary of Mabo was in June. Was it the 3rd of June?
Yes, it was.
And then the Myall Creek one is the 8th of June, isn't it, the anniversary?
I think it was the 8th this year, yes.
Yeah. So there's so much going on, isn't it? And I think that all these murders and massacres that have been committed, would you say that having a map is important of where all these massacres took place?
Look, I think they're important in the sense that they can be an educational tool to help people understand how many there were, where they were, what happened there, and those sort of things. But really, we really need national recognition of that from the government to before it'll make any sense to anyone, I think.
Absolutely, and is that really going to happen? I mean, it seems to me that the federal government doesn't seem to really recognise that slavery existed in Australia.
I'd like them to explain that to me, to my poor old mum who was indentured to a farm.
Tell us about that.
Outside of Armidale. So, she had no choice but to be there or be in a home. So if that's not slavery, where you don't have a choice to go and come as you please, where you can't collect your wages, where you're basically at the beck and call of the people of the homestead, then I don't understand what they think slavery is. And then we had the Pacific, the South Pacific Islanders in the cane fields, and they were one of the many things. And I just wonder what people think about things when they see pictures of Aboriginal people with chains around their neck and the newspaper clippings talking about how Aboriginal people had to have chains on their necks so that they wouldn't run away. They couldn't put them on their legs and their hands because then they wouldn't work. But if that's not slavery, then I don't know. I must be really basic and have no concept of it.
Yeah, look, it simply isn't acknowledged, is it?
No, it's simply not. I think one of the key things that Australia needs to do is actually go through and have a look at what the actual history was and recognise it for what it was, not have this glossed over, fluffy, lovely idea that it was all peaceful and that we didn't agree. I just think it's just people need to get the facts and have the true history told, and then we can sort of start to have a discussion then about what way we move forward from that. But until they do that truth-telling, there is absolutely a lot of people who are very unaware of what the actual history is.
But people don't know. People don't know.
I know they don't know. I run cultural competency courses, and the comment I hear most after every course is, I didn't know that. And people are actually stunned that this is happening within my lifetime. I think that's why we need to have this truth-telling. That's why people need to be educated as into what happened, how it happened, what were the impacts and implications of that, and how that contributed to Aboriginal people being in the dire situations they are now.
Absolutely, and in fact, a lot of solutions that we need to see here is to have a treaty.
I'm still
but does that really work, though? Does that really work?
Up on whether it's treaty or constitution. There's a lot of legal aspects about that. But in saying that, a treaty is what separates, one of the things that separates us from other Indigenous peoples in the world. They had a treaty, we didn't. But they had, we were claimed under terra nullius and they weren't. And I suppose the reason for that was they didn't recognise our farming practices. We didn't have one people or speak all the one language, so that they only had to deal with sort of one sort of hierarchy or one group of people. So there were a lot of differences, but a treaty would have made it a lot easier for us if we had had one.
Absolutely. Now, Aunty, with the farming practices, that's a really good one, because that certainly isn't looked at properly, is it? And that could have stopped all the bushfires too.
Look, Aboriginal people have been managing country for many years, and their practices have proven over all that time to be effective, and I just think that maybe we've had that many chops and changes to the laws and rules about burning country and clearing country and doing all sorts of things. If they would step back and have a look at how Aboriginal people actually performed those acts, then they could see that it'd be a much better outcome, and it'd be a lot safer for a lot of our wildlife, our people, our communities, and just people's health in general with all the smoke that was around.
Absolutely. So, do you know much about the history of what happened to your mum?
Oh, I know a lot about the history that happened to my mum. My mum was a young girl in Armidale, New South Wales, and her mother was Aboriginal and her father was non-Aboriginal. Her father had been attacked outside a local establishment and had died. There were some stories as to why he got attacked, and the most common cause was because he had an Aboriginal wife. I don't think people realise, but in those days, often if you had an Aboriginal wife, you had to go and spend every Sunday in the jail for that privilege. And my mum, her mother had rheumatic fever. So when she died of rheumatic fever, my mum was left with her brother, who was my dear Uncle Bruce, and he was 18. He tried to look after the younger siblings, and I think there was 5 or 6 of them, and my Uncle Malcolm was a tiny little baby. The welfare of the day came in and said that they didn't think he was capable of looking after the children, so they removed them and put them in a home in Sydney. My Uncle Malcolm, somehow they got a message to family in Walker, and they passed my Uncle Malcolm out the window to family, and he didn't end up going to the homes. He went back to Armidale, to Uncle Bruce, and Uncle Bruce raised him. So Mum was in the home, and she used to tell me that she used to look after the younger kids so she could look after her little brothers that were in there. And then she ran away when she was 16. And if you knew my mum, she was such a lovely, sweet person, and very, very thoughtful and very clever. She ran away. She hurt her ankle jumping over the fence, and she was trying to get out to La Perouse to get to family, to get back to Armidale. And she ended up at Hyde Park at night time. And she told me the story of how she started off very low on the branch at the beginning of the night and ended up right up the top at the end of the night, because Hyde Park was very interesting, say, in those days.
Yes.
And then she came back to Armidale. They let her come back to Armidale. She was indentured to a farm for a couple of years, and then she left there, and then she married my dad.
Right.
And went on to have a family of her own. Those brothers of hers, we managed to get a reunion together of them, and I think it was like over 30 years later since they'd last met. My poor Uncle Bruce was shaking on that day, because the only time he'd seen his younger siblings was when they just got out of the home, and they didn't understand that he had no choice, and they felt very angry that he didn't keep them. But over the years they developed a relationship, and we managed to get them all together at a reunion, which was one of the loveliest things I think I've seen. And it was, sadly, my mum wasn't there. My mum had passed away by then, but we always saw our Uncle Bruce in Armidale, and we had very close connections. All Mum's other brothers all called in on our home and that over the years. So while Mum may have had connections, Uncle Bruce, it took a long time for them to heal.
So as a child, you definitely are a child of the stolen generation.
Yes, and my brother was as well. He was. My mother had just had a child and had an abscess on her breast. My father was away working. There were no telephones or mobile phones in those days. Because Mum went to hospital, welfare came and took my two older sisters and brother to a home in Armidale. When Dad came back and Mum and Dad went to pick them up from the home, it was in no uncertain terms stated to them that someone had really wanted a little Aboriginal boy to raise, and when Mum and Dad objected, they were under the threat of, well, you have two other children there, do you want them or to go as well? So they weren't left with much choice, and my brother Dave grew up in Narrabri, and he grew up where there was a lot of racism. I remember him saying to me once that he asked why he couldn't go to the pool, and the lady that raised him said, oh, you silly little bastard, look at the colour of your skin, of course you can't go in there. My brother was forever damaged over that, and while he was very intelligent and had a degree in accountancy and things, he became a chronic alcoholic, and he spent basically his whole life testing Centrelink out and how they could make payments to him, because he thought someone had to pay for why he was taken away and not allowed to grow up. We used to send my brother on school holidays sometimes.
That's outrageous.
And this is in my lifetime. This is just.
What year was he taken, Auntie?
No, my sister was born in. I think she was born in 57. So I think in 57.
So these genocidal policies were still happening?
Well, I came under the Flora and Fauna Act until I was till 1967. So
absolutely,
yeah, people. That's what I mean about truth telling. People think it happened 200 years ago.
That's right.
And you should just get over it and move on. But I don't think they understand the true history of what happened, and I don't think they understand the true impact of how that was for Aboriginal people.
That's precisely why I asked the question, because I really wanted listeners to understand that it's happening now. It's not just about the past. It's not just about colonial history from the past. It's still happening.
There are more children removed today than ever was in the stolen generation. It's systematic. We have our young Aboriginal women now outstripping our Aboriginal men in incarceration rates. There's so many other areas that I could give you stats where it's just not getting any better. It's supposed to be closing the gap, and really they're only just making small increments in a very few areas. And if they were serious about it, they would take a lot bigger look and put a lot more resources into that space.
And there do need to be resources. We need to have community control, not prisons.
Yes, I think that's exactly what we should have. But with community control, they expect communities to run huge businesses and that without the resources, without the education, without the support, and then turn around and condemn us when things collapse, because people, not all communities have the skill set necessarily to be able to do these things. There's a lot of young Aboriginal people out there that have those skills, and they're up and coming, and I'm very proud to say they're doing a great job. But it's okay to say, oh yes, we should just give it to community control. But you need to support that act with, resources, education and support for people who run these organisations to be able to assist them, plan for the future, plan for succession training, plan for employment, plan for growth, plan for all the other things, training, and that can come with those programs.
Yeah, and a recommendation I think that would be applicable here is to have not so much government funding, but to have independent co-ops, that Aboriginal people can run themselves, and so that money can pour out of that into their communities.
That's an interesting idea. I hadn't really thought of it like that, but I'm sure there are a lot of other better solutions than what they've come up with.
Absolutely, and actually, I think the Native Americans over in the US have, they do their casinos. Do you know what I mean? I know that's not good in a way. I mean, gambling, but and it's not just the casinos. They have all other programs, and they actually use that money, to fund their communities. I don't know much about it, but it's just something to think about, isn't it, to have that independent co-op stuff happening?
Well, it'd be something to think about. We have the community-controlled health services. And,
True.
They do a wonderful job for Aboriginal people.
Yes, indeed.
That's a good example of something that has worked very well. I think if we had the same, like they've taken a lot of money out of Aboriginal health, but
absolutely too much.
If we could have more access to funding to be able to finance some of the organisations and some of the services that we need, I think they would find Aboriginal people would be much more engaging instead of just being told or
that's right,
or assessed or whatever else they do to us, surveys.
That's exactly right. It's been great having you, Aunty Jeanelle, and it's good that we've been able to talk about Myall Creek, but also talk about your story and also some solutions as well, and keep up the good work.
We're eternal optimists. I don't know why, but yes.
I know. I think about myself the same way sometimes. You take care, and I hope we can have you back soon.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
The media in this country, we as Indigenous people know, have censored our right of telling the truth, and the truth is what this country is most fearful of, in particular Indigenous truths. Until history is told by the vanquished lens, which is our people telling our story our way, and have the right to be able to incorporate that into a system of learning, well, people are always going to be denied that truth by deceit and lies. When you look at the type of psychological warfare and spiritual warfare that Aboriginal people are caught in, it's not just in the sense of military when they talk about weapons of mass destruction, but you're right, it's in terms of the media and the industry of media as a warfare against our people, and so is religion, I believe, in the Western sense. They're all weapons of mass destruction against our people.
3CR, your station in struggle and solidarity.
To donate, go to 3cr.org.au.
Fitzroy Legal Service has launched a free information and advice phone service for people who have been stopped, questioned, fined or charged for breaching the new COVID-19 restrictions. Have you been fined or charged under the new laws? Or stopped and questioned by police for being outside?
Call 0434 136 501. Weekdays between 9am and 5pm. That's 0434 136 501. Or head to fitzroy-legal.org.au for more information. You can also report incidents at covidpolicing.org.au.
Fitzroy Legal Service is a 3CR supporter.
And you're back with the Doing Time show, and it's time to wrap up just about. It's approximately 4:49, and I wanted to especially thank Meriki and Aunty Jeanelle for coming onto the show today to highlight the Myall Creek Massacre. Aunty Jeanelle highlighted the Myall Creek Massacre and talked about her personal story, and in fact also in terms of the stolen generation, and in particular speaking about her mother's experience and also her brother's experience at the hands of the government of the time. And I think one of the things that came out of that was that things are happening now. And of course we spoke to Meriki as well about the protest in solidarity with George Floyd, and talked a little bit about the outrageous media coverage that happened as a result of that, trying to blame the protesters for the pandemic or the second wave. And as Meriki said in her introduction, you know, roughly, we're supposed to be in this together, but are we really? Yeah, it was very interesting. Anyway, just wanted to say that in the next couple of shows we will be providing more coverage in regards to the protests that have happened all over Australia, and talking a little bit about the American experience as well. Just wanted to talk about the appeal quickly. And there is a station appeal happening throughout the month of June, and it's incredible to reflect on the extraordinary amount of change that's occurred since the onset of COVID-19. We've seen whole communities in lockdown, the decimation of the world economy, huge levels of unemployment, significant breaches of democratic practice and unprecedented pressure put on the capitalist system. For nearly 45 years, 3CR has fought for change. Through our program content, we advocate and agitate for social and political justice, and through our organisational model, we represent how radical independent media can give power to communities. It's clear that things will change, but history tells us that change is determined by political struggle. 3CR is part of that struggle, critiquing existing structures, amplifying new voices and visions, and we need your help to keep going. Already, we see the tremendous response of local communities supporting each other. It's been called a new kindness pandemic. But supporters of 3CR already know the transformative power of community action for a better world. So with your help, we're confident we can weather these hard times and continue to be Melbourne's radical, independent and community-owned broadcaster. So I know things are tough, but try to donate to the station appeal if you can. And it's important that we try and keep it alive. So it's approximately 4:52, and one of the things that's important to note here, and I just wanted to bring your attention to something that Meriki was talking about towards the end of the interview in regards to the Age. And the Age newspaper talked a lot about, the fact that the protesters were going to be spitting on police. I want to actually set the record straight there, and I actually listened to a lot of the coverage on 3CR, and the protest was just wonderful, and in particular the way that the elders talked about honouring the dead, and also that a lot of masks were given out, all the gloves were given out, sanitisers were ordered, and in fact, you know, the Warriors of Aboriginal Resistance did consult with all their community-controlled health services, and it was organised for 55,000 bottles of hand sanitiser and many thousands of gloves to be distributed to the staff on the day of the rally. And other health groups and organisations also set up stations across the rally site and helped distribute sanitiser, masks and gloves. And it's important to note that the Aboriginal community is aware that the health of the community is always of the utmost importance, and it's especially so in the time of pandemic. Because the Warriors of Aboriginal Resistance wrote a statement about this, and I'm just quoting bits and pieces from that. And just to explain that they see the autonomy of their community and their allies to ensure their own safety and adherence to COVID-19 protective regulations. I'm mentioning this because it has been of grave concern to me as a radio broadcaster and also as a human rights activist that I've had many, many phone calls of people terming the protests around Australia as a riot, and also saying, "Oh yes, but look at this. They're going to cause the second wave of the pandemic." So I'm hoping that during this broadcast that not only that was I able to talk about deaths in custody, but I'm also hoping that I've made clear that these protests were safe and that it is important to be safe and that regulations were adhered to. It's approximately 4:56 and we've got a couple of minutes left of our show. Stay tuned every Monday from 4 till 5 for the Doing Time show, and stay safe and strong. And pretty soon we're going to be going out with our theme song, Black Fella, White Fella, by the Rumpy Band. And a special cheerio also to Joe Miller, who helped me organise Aunty Jeanelle. And Joe Miller is actually also a friend of Myall Creek Committee as well. So, with Beyond Zero up next, and we'll be going out very soon with Warumpi Band. Take care and see you next week. Bye.
As long as you a true fella, as long as you a real fella. All the people of different races with different lives in different places. It doesn't matter what your name is. We got to have lots of changes. We need more brothers if we're to make it. We need more sisters if we're to save it. Are you the one who's gonna stand up and be counted? Are you the one who's gonna be there when we're shouting? Are you the one who's always ready with a helping hand? Are you the one who understands this family plan? Black fella, white fella, yellow fella, any fella, it doesn't matter what you color, as long as you are true.